Thank you for coming today. If you were here yesterday, I hope you enjoyed talking about hospitality. Today, as I said, we'll be talking shopping. Who doesn't like to shop? Hands up, who doesn't like to shop? That's good, good. You're in the right place then. So I'm going to cover how we engage people in retail environments, mostly in the physical space, but a little bit on the online space too. And this is more thought-provokers than deep dive drivers of change. And the aim is to plant some seeds in your minds for some of the talks that will follow later on today. So I invite you to think about these things in the context of your own work, and I'll leave you at the end of this with 3 questions to ponder while you're sitting here and listening to everyone else throughout the day. If you were here yesterday, sorry, I'm going to bore you with this again. If you weren't, very quickly, I'm a chartered psychologist by background, but I've always worked in design and innovation. I'm doing product and service development, and I normally sit at the intersection of people, product, and place. I started my career in Silicon Valley working for HP Labs, doing the Internet of Things stuff, and then consulted to lots of retail and hospitality companies. I also teach psychology and design at Central St. Martin's, which is always a fun thing to be doing. So, on to some other stuff. I'm going to talk about enabling purchase decisions. And I'm not going to hit the big trends and stuff because you probably know about them, you've heard about them, you'll hear about them again today. So things like big data, mobile commerce, personalization, the Internet of Things, who doesn't love the Internet of Things, retail everywhere, and shop windows that talk, all of that kind of good stuff that we're seeing lots of examples of. Instead, I'm going to talk about people a little bit and consider the ways that we can affect decision-making for the consumer today. The nice thing about people is that they're actually quite simple. We're actually quite simple, not they, sorry. We want to feel welcome. We want to feel safe. We want to be greeted. We want to be noticed, and we want to be listened to. Basic human needs. Retailers generally need to welcome us, reassure us, greet us, notice us, and listen to us. That's what makes a great retail experience. It's about the people a lot of the times. So I'm going to talk about 5 opportunities that I think are key for us in retail today. The first of those is selling to the senses. So as humans, we're very sensorial creatures. We think with our senses, we make decisions with our senses, and physical retail is not going away. Its role might change, but it's definitely here to stay. So that means that as retailers, we need to play to the strengths of senses, really. How do we do that? I think it's very much about demonstrating tangible features of products and services, allowing consumers to interact, differentiating with things like display materials, using the capabilities of the devices we have today, tablets and phones that vibrate and do weird things when you move them around, and generate what I'm going to call wantability. Right? How do you generate somebody wanting something? Let's talk a little bit about the psychology of touch in that sense. So sensory interaction, touch and smell especially, cultivate ownership. You hold something in your hands, you feel it, you interact with it, you sense it, and generally, well, not all the times, if you want it, it's very clear to you that you want it. Pretty much within under about 10 seconds, if you interact with something and you really like it, you're going to have what I'm going to call irrational wantability. That is, you just want it. Don't care what it does, I like it, it feels great, I want this thing. Less than 10 seconds. With no interaction with a product or service, you tend to evaluate something on features. I'm going to call that rational wantability, right? So the rational stuff is, you see something, you hear about it, it sounds great, you spend hours reasoning or talking yourself into buying something or not buying something. But it's all about the features versus the actual tactility of something. The tactility of something, though, is massively important and can change your perception of a product very quickly. So, by example, when I was working for HP in Silicon Valley, we used to do a lot of ethnographic work looking at spaces and how people interacted with them. And I did some work in a bookstore there. Books are books, right? We merchandise books by putting them on a shelf and showing you the spine. What was really interesting, if you observe people in a bookstore, and go and do this, I suggest you do, is bookstores now put books on tables a lot of the time, right? So you've got the title side up. And what we saw a lot of people do was look over there, because they're looking at that section on whatever it might be, science and something, but wander around the store doing this. So they're looking over there. I'm going to lose my mic, sorry. Let's take it with me. Wandering around the store looking over there, but doing this as they're walking around, touching stuff. and actually stopping, eyes are over there, stopping based on what they could feel under their hand, picking up the book. 7 times out of 10, they actually bought that book. Now, small sample, it was only over about 3 or 4 weeks, but 7 times out of 10, they bought the thing that they were touching because they had a connection to it. I don't know what they thought of the book afterwards, I didn't ask, but there you go. What does that mean for us as retailers? I think it means that we have an opportunity, and we should actually create, for people that visit us in store or online, an invitation to interact. How do we do that? How do we get people to engage? Well, if you give them the appropriate invitation to interact, their behavior is actually generally very predictable. We're predictable creatures. So my question to you is, without asking, saying, hey, would you like to touch this or interact with this, how can you design a space that says, interact with me? How can you get people to want to come and touch your products, come and interact with them, feel them, and experience them, essentially? As I said, appropriate invitation, predictable behavior. We all love the Apple Store, right? It's a classic and very open example of an invitation to interact. Big tables, stuff on the table. In order to play with the computers, you have to move the screen to adjust it to the height that you want it at. If you go into an Apple Store early in the morning when they first open, every screen is laid out at exactly the same angle, right? Go and stand at the edge of the table and look at it. It's exactly the same angle. So when you go up to it, you have to touch it and move it to have it do something. How many people have not gone into an Apple Store, gone like this and go, I want one of those. I have 42 computers at home anyway, but I want another one. I want one of those ones now, please. Right? Products are there, open to use. No one tells you to go away. No one says, don't touch. The actual space itself invites you to have an interaction. And we're seeing people do that a lot more. Virgin Holidays, for instance, they recently, I think at the end of last year, opened up a paperless holiday lab that combines the physical and digital, and asks you to have an interactive experience to book your next holiday. They don't say, here's a brochure, here's what you can do in Disneyland, right? They say, come and play with some stuff, come and sit on the grass. It's made up, right? You can say it's a little bit tacky if you want, but actually people go in there, touch things, play with things, and make decisions there in those moments, as opposed to looking through pieces of paper and stuff that don't actually get you what you want to know. Victor and Rolf in Paris, I think earlier this year, opened up a flagship store where they covered, all the interiors were covered in felt, right? You bring to attention the product versus the nuances of the space. You filter out the noise by using relevant fabrics. Now, this is a clothing store, right? When we go into a clothing store, what do we do a lot of the time? You probably do this, I do this a lot. I'm gonna take my microphone with me again. Is you wander around and you're looking again at something, but you're doing this as you're walking around, right, across the clothing. You often stop and pick something up based upon what you've touched or felt. Irrational wantability, right? And when you have a space that is covered like that, you naturally want to go up and interact with it. I think there's a lot that we can do in physical retail and actually in digital retail to think about how we get people to viscerally respond to what it is that we're trying to sell them. The second thing I want to talk about that I think we can do more of and that people are looking for is proof. So prove it, right? There's so many claims out there in the market about this does this and my product does this better than that one and this phone is better than that and this thing works this way and this one has that many features. How do you know? Prove it. We're so inundated with information, right? And we want generally as people to have an anchor to hold on to. And we want an experiential narrative to tell. If you reveal the craftsmanship and the science, you establish certainty. We want certainty. As I said at the beginning, we don't want to experience fear, we want reassurance, so we want certainty. We want you to tell us, the retailer, how you differentiate on skill. I want answers to my questions, and generally, I'm curious about stuff, so I want to learn more. Who isn't, right? How do we do that? Product belief. What's product belief? There's something called the dilution effect, where you get so much irrelevant information which leads to extreme judgment and makes you question validity. But we do that a lot when we're trying to sell people stuff. In fact, the world of media and social media is giving us all of this stuff all the time. Think about it from this point of view, think about it from that point of view. Look at this picture, look at that picture. This is what so-and-so said, this is what this other person said, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of information, right? Some of it is massively irrelevant to you and the situation and the context you're in. So, dilution effect. It actually, the amount of information out there dilutes the validity of the product to you. However, contextualized information leads to confidence, because you can see something in action, you understand why it's there, you understand why it is what it is. What can we do about that? I think there's something in the notion of a product playground, if you like, right? Proof in a product context. Not too much information, because too much information creates cognitive load. That is, too much in our minds, too much on our heads, and we just can't make decisions. Create product playground and create transparency. And here's a couple of examples of people that have done that quite well, I think. Sony Walkman. What's the Sony Walkman anymore? Isn't it just iPods? So they were selling, I think it was last year, a new Walkman, and it's waterproof, right? The headphones are waterproof, everything's waterproof. So they put it in a vending machine. They put bottles, like water bottles, in a vending machine filled with water, and they put the Walkmans in the water. Is that proof enough that it's waterproof? I think so, right? So you can vend a Sony Walkman. They put them near swimming pools, all the rest of it. Great place to put it, right? Product in context. You can use one of these while you go swimming. Not sure I want to do that, mostly because I don't swim, I drown very well, but anyway. So product in context works really, really, really well. You know that what it says on the tin is true. Adidas created something called the Spring Blade running shoe. You should check it out, it's quite cool. They put up a pop-up store in South Korea, and it was an innovation lab, basically in its flagship store there. And it showcases the science behind the shoes. 3 zones, allows visitors to get acquainted with the concept, the design and the performance, and then you can go upstairs and try it out, and you can test the performance and all the claims that they make about the capabilities of the shoe. Proof, right? Again, proof that it does what it says on the tin, proof that it is what it is compared to everything else out there in the market. Another example, the O2 concept store in Berlin. What does O2 sell? Phones. Telefonica, we sell phones. They sell phones, right? Now, you've got a music phone, you've got this phone, you've got a phone that's great for Twitter, you've got a phone that's great for this. Normally, if you go into a phone store, they're all just laid out. And everything looks the same, right? We all try to differentiate in product, but if you hold up your iPhone, a Samsung phone, an HTC phone, generally they all look the same. They're black or white, right? And they've got a full screen. And unless you really know what it is, they're all the same thing. So the guys at O2 decided to differentiate based on what the phone companies marketed the phone as being about. For the music phone, put it in a guitar case. Show it against a music stand. All of these things that provide context actually help us make decisions. It's not just always about the science, it's also sometimes about proof in terms of craftsmanship, especially in the luxury industry, right? This is it's called Gucci Cocktails and Craftsmanship. You should all go to one of those. It's the Gucci store, every now and then, inviting some of their loyal customers to come and have cocktails and see someone at work. Right? Again, proof of how something is made. This really is made by hand. It really is hand-stitched. Right? I really do spend 4 hours to do this thing, to create the stitching against here. Another example. Did you guys see the Leica advert? Has anyone seen the Leica advert? It's a 40-minute advert for a Leica camera. They claimed it's the most boring ad ever. They claim this. One craftsman polishing down a camera frame for 40 minutes. This thing comes out of a machine, and there's one guy sitting there just basically with a, I can't think of the word now, not sandpaper, but the right tools, and just chipping away at the case of this camera. You should go check it out. It's actually mesmerizing. It's 40 minutes of just watching this guy make this thing perfect. If you watch it, you'll want it. Proof that actually this thing is handmade and it is a work of art. Oops. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is the opportunity to simplify the path to purchase. Right? The path to purchase ages ago was a very simple thing. Walk into a store, see something, decide you want it, buy it, pay the guy, out the door, and you've got the thing. Now it's massively complicated, right? Multiple entry and exit points. Do I look at something online? Do I see it in someone's hand? Do I look at it in the store? Where do I go next? Do I go to social media? How do I find out about it? Many different opinions and options. So we're going to simplify the path to purchase. How do we do that? I think it's by removing obstacles, things that get in the way, obviously. Creating more H-to-H moments. An H-to-H moment is a human-to-human moment. Not a peer-to-peer, not a social-to-social, but a human-to-human moment where somebody can help you make decisions. Create moments of delight that helps people along on their path to purchase, getting them from one end to the other. Rethinking the path to purchase in technology, so in the mobile form. And we've made it long haul, right? We've made the path to purchase a long haul flight. It's like flying London to Hong Kong, right? Instead, make it flying London to Paris, right? Chunk that down as opposed to making it bigger. We've just made everything huge. What does that mean? So I think the path to purchase is actually a combination of both, well, it's a customer journey, but it's a combination of both a medical, can't speak today, a mental and a physical journey. Right? The customer journey starts in thoughts or connections, but any purchase decision is actually a series of cognitive and tangible stages, so the stuff you think and the stuff you touch, before a final choice is made. Once the need is identified, we go out and we look for lots and lots and lots of information, right, across various channels, media, stores, etc. And as we navigate that, our decision is influenced either in a good way or a bad way, and we either trust something or not. It's affected by things, opinions, and people. I think the path to purchase or the customer journey is actually from the point of awareness when you find out about something to the point of advocacy when you tell somebody else about it. That's when you've bought into it. But instead of it being a linear line, it now does all of this kind of stuff. You go here and you check this, you get an Instagram photo, you look at that, you get some tweets. It's really overwhelming. The mediums are actually overwhelming, right? We often move from one screen to another when we're shopping. This is from Google's study that says 67% of us start shopping on one device for mobile commerce, for e-commerce, and we end up completing the transaction on another. And there's tons of stuff that's happened along the way. And actually, brands themselves are creating those tons of stuff things, those lots of touch points. They're creating them. We think that's a good thing, right? Lots of touch points. But if the narrative is not consistent across those touch points, then what you end up doing is actually confusing people. So I think there's an opportunity to simplify, to avoid conflicting signals, and to make the path much simpler. And I think there's an opportunity to provide moments to purchase at key points in that decision-making process to enable quick decisions. How? I think this is very much about creating a purchasing narrative, a story, a clear story to help you make clear decisions. Finding the right places to reassure someone, and I don't just mean having a stream of information that says this is great, this is great. It could be more of those human-to-human moments that we talked about before, and I think that Christian will actually touch on later on as well. The fourth thing I want to cover, you've heard about the paradox of choice. Have you heard about the paradox of choice? We have too many choices. Kill it. Get rid of it. Right? We've got, as I said before, so much out there, so many options, not enough filtering. We don't do enough filtering for people. You can have this, and you can have it with this option, and this option, and this option, and that option, and that option, and that option. We actually make it really difficult for people to buy. We want to sell our products and services, but we make it really difficult for people to buy a lot of the time. I'm not saying we don't do personalization. I'm not saying we don't give people options. I'm just saying that we can be slightly better at curating that. There's lots of curation. It's being talked about all the time. It's slightly different to personalization, I think. I think it's about product and placement. So it's about the actual thing that you are selling, but also how you sell it. We're 35% more likely to buy something if it's at eye level. We kind of connect with it at that level, right? And showcasing products and services in context really, really helps. It helps guide decision-making, and it helps build trust and eliminate conflicts and confusion. Why is that important? I think it's about showing your expertise. You know your products, you know your services. It's about showing expertise. Contextual guidance actually leads to reassurance of choice. What was one of the basic human needs earlier on was reassurance, right? And we want to be sure that we bought the right thing. We're not sure that we bought the right thing anymore, which is why if you probably open a drawer or two at home, you've probably got 5 iPhone cases because you thought this one would be great, but actually, no, that one doesn't do that. And you've got 4 of this other kind of thing because you started off with this one, and then now you've got these other 5 things that you've got of the same thing, right? How many of us have drawers full of stuff? I think it's about finding a place to reassure someone. So curatorial retail is something that's taking off pretty heavily right now. It shows that you have expertise. It shows that you have an opinion. I think that's really important. It's the showing you have an opinion that's really important. This is JB Banks Interiors. Interior design stores do it really, really, really well, right? Banana Republic does it really, really, really well. When I used to work in Silicon Valley, you used to know when someone shopped at Banana Republic because they were wearing the exact outfit that was in the window for that season, and then the exact outfit that was in the window for the next season, right? It works really well because people don't often know how to put things together. They're not stupid, but they just need some guidance, right? Interior design, as I said, does it really well. If you look at the Habitat store in the UK, or you look at IKEA, for instance, right? You go to people's homes, and a lot of places are actually curated exactly as the store has been curated. And I think we can do that in an online space as well. This is a company called All and Sundry. They're based in New York. And they allow you to make, they give you the opportunity to make custom-made shoes. It's men only at the moment. I asked him why not women. He said he just didn't know that market very well. So online customized shoemaking. It's a guided process, limited choice, step by step. You can't really go wrong. Well, maybe, right? So you can pick the outline of a shoe that you want. Then you go through the stages of design. You pick the last. You pick the design features of it. You pick what you want the toe to look like. You pick the colors. And you have some inspiration from what other people have done. It's a very guided process, very limited options, but you end up with a customized product that you think you've made yourself, well, you have made yourself. But it's then handmade by these guys there. So they're actually curating not just the end product, but the choices that you make along the way and helping you make them means that you end up with something that you really love and that you're engaged in from the beginning. Another example is Trunk Club. It's curated men's retail. So they have a bunch of people. That's their store in the, I'm not going to attempt to use the laser, the bottom left corner over there is their store. Looks like someone's wardrobe and bedroom, right? It's curated in the sense that the possibilities are actually limited. You can't have everything. And they will help you choose what you need to have a great outfit. They'll help you along the way. Curating your clothes. The final thing I want to talk about is what I think we don't do enough is stumble upon moments. And that doesn't mean making someone fall down, as that picture indicates, right? But I think it's about discovery versus search. Everything today is about search. Search for this, search for that. When you're looking for something, you start off by going to Google, and you try to find things based on features. Give me a something and a something. I want a something with a something, right? And those moments of discovery are a little more difficult these days. We do have them. I'm not saying we don't have them. I just think we could be more creative about how we have them. And stumble upon moments give you the story that you can tell later on to somebody else. And we all have a story to tell. You can interrupt a path to purchase through a stumble upon moment and stop that kind of getting in the mix of too many decisions and too many choices by giving somebody something they really want, by stumbling upon it. It's a way for you to connect buy and see moments. So I see something, and I actually want to buy it now because I stumbled upon it and it's great and it really fits my needs right now. Or actually you stumble upon something, the purchase might be delayed, but it actually does happen. Right? The number of people who go to stores and online stores 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they actually make a purchase is growing. What is this about? It's about finding, not seeking. It's about moments of discovery equaling moments of delight, and I think that's really important. I said this yesterday as well when we were talking about hospitality. The moments of delight are actually great drivers for service propositions and for purchasing things and for stories to tell people later on. A couple of examples. Perch Interactive are a company that does this a lot, right? They take interactive surfaces. This is actually a nail salon. Pick up a color and it plays music. The colors ripple. It's a really silly thing, but you stumble upon that because the table is clear. It doesn't say, come and touch me and I will ripple, right? It's just you pick something up and it does something. That's a moment of delight for people, and they start to engage a bit more. You start to engage a bit more. As I said, touch makes you want stuff, right? You start to play with things, and actually those purchase decisions become easier. I love this. Farmer's fridge, right? As retailers and foodies, we're always trying to change behavior and change habits. And you can interrupt a normal customer journey. I'm going to McDonald's for my lunch, or I'm going to Dunkin' Donuts for my lunch. And then you're wandering around there, along there, and Farmer's fridge stops you in your tracks, right? It's a vending machine that sells salad, basically. En route to McDonald's, and you have a vending machine that stops you in your tracks and sells salad. You stumble upon it. You don't know it's going to be there, but it actually changes your decision to do something. The final example I want to give you is something called power tag. I don't know if you heard about this, but the notion of Bluetooth and tags and all this kind of stuff is really kicking off. NFC technology, the Internet of Things. This is point-and-shoot shopping. Sounds cool, right? Point at something with your camera, take a picture of it. I've got it now, thanks. So it's trying to remove the I'll come back later moments. But again, it's the walking down a high street kind of instance. And we don't do enough of that. Walking down a high street kind of instance, seeing something you like and being able to capture that, right? Another moment there where you're using data in the physical store and data on your mobile device to make a decision. These guys are going great ones, by the way. They've got partnerships with more than 240 heavyweight brands, including Reebok, Universal Music. And they're trying to boost basket size, increase customer engagement over physical outlets, but also e-commerce and mobile shopping. These guys have got $100 million in funding. That doesn't tell you that there is a market for this stuff out there. There's opportunity to do stuff out there in terms of combining the physical and the digital. It's a massive space to play in. And I think we can be really, really, really creative about how we do that. I'm going to shut up now. But just before I do that, I'm going to leave you with 3 questions to ponder as you listen to the other speakers throughout the day. The first is this. How would you simplify your path to purchase? If you're a retailer, how would you make that path to purchase simpler, more engaging? The second question I want to ask you to think about is to think beyond the transaction, to think beyond that exchange that you see up there, to how might you reinvent the ceremony of retail? What do I mean by that? I'm not sure, other than it sounded like a nice thing to say. But the actual ceremony, the moment of actually transacting and going into a store and looking for something, making decisions, not just that point of paying. How would you change and reinvent the ceremony of retail? I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And finally, customer journeys. How would you design a customer journey, not just for an e-commerce site? We talk too much about e-commerce. How would you design a customer journey for a flagship, I cannot speak today, for a flagship digital retail store? Not an e-commerce site, I want to be very clear, not an e-commerce site, not a website that sells stuff, but a flagship digital retail store. That's a different idea, I think. How would you do that? Thank you, but before I go, I want to say a quick thank you to everyone in blue and white t-shirts here, the hosts and sponsors for putting on such a great event. I think if you want a mark of hospitality, then this should be it. And very quickly, an introduction to some of the people that you're going to listen to later on today. And I can't read my screen, so I'm going to turn around, sorry. Christian Jones, who is replacing Ian at very short notice from Fitch to talk about rehumanizing retail. Jason from Cherrypix is going to talk about O2O, offline to offline. Bonnie from, Bicycle Group, sorry, I can't read what's on my screen here, it's too small. Let's talk about international branding and digital platforms. Missy from KODW will talk about a store without a store, right? So not the physical store, but how do you showcase goods in a physical space but not actually have them present? Grace from VVG will talk about creating a lifestyle village. And Leo will talk about popular culture and storytelling. So that's what's in line for you for the rest of the day. And very quickly, if you like data, can you see that? You can't see that. Damn. Okay. Ignore what I just said then. If you like data, see if this works. Go check this out. It's very cool. and it's live. If you go to that, sorry, I was hoping to show it to you live, but doesn't seem to be picking up the screen on my laptop. It's what's being sold in the US, online and offline, right now, this very moment. And those numbers will change constantly. So you'll see how many burgers are being bought, how many books are being sold in the physical sense and in the virtual sense, how many donuts are being bought, how many coffees are being bought, how many firearms are being bought. That was a bit scary. Pets, all sorts of things. It's quite cool. It's one of those mesmerizing bits of data that you can't take your eyes off. Anyway, enough from me. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.